3 years, 3 iPhones, the 11, 12, and 13. They're all available to purchase. Moreover, they're all included in the official Apple line. And the official prices are as follows. Well, since all these iPhones are in the official line, they're all relevant. So let's find out which one to choose and whether it's worth paying more. Hey everyone, this is Droider, let's go. We begin with, of course, the appearance. All 3 fit in my hand well, and each in its own way. Here it's a personal preference. For me, everything is excellent in terms of ergonomics. The 11 has better grip, and I could use it with a cover. The 12 and 13 seem more comfortable in a cover. Here are the dimensions. The iPhone 11 is the heaviest and the largest of the 3. And the frames around the display are impressive, but I personally don't see this as a problem. Plus, it has a rounded body, unlike the new angular and squarish designs of the 12 and 13. iPhone 11 also has an IP68, but it has a depth of only 2 meters. For iPhone 12 and 13, their depth has increased to 6 meters. Do you remember how I drowned the 12 mini at the bottom of the river? Externally, iPhone 13 is distinguished by the camera, as it's pretty distinctive. 2 cameras diagonally, an aluminum frame, and protection glass everywhere. The front and back of the iPhone 12 and 13 have ceramic shield glass. It's stronger, but it also scratches. What about the colors? The iPhone 11 has 6 colors: purple, yellow, green, black, white, and red. The iPhone 12 also has 6: purple, blue, green, black, white, and red. And the 13, 5 colors: blue, pink, black, white, and red. Interestingly, the colors change from year to year in different shades. Some are a little brighter, others are a little more pastel. This year, perhaps the most boring colors, pastel, pink, and strange blue, were added to the strange white, black, and red. In past years, there were good purple and green ones, and the iPhone 11 in yellow is generally sexy, my favorite. But there are also new features in the new designs. For example, both the 12 and 13 support MagSafe. This doesn't only affect charging, but also various accessories and holders. Yes, at least the ill-fated wallet. But the main thing is still wireless charging. 15 watts. 11 can also be charged using MagSafe, but only 7.5 watts. And wired charging, 11 is 18 watts, the 12, 20, and 13, 23, according to unofficial data. But at the same time, they all charge up to 50% in 30 minutes. As if there is no fundamental difference, the Lightning connector is on all 3, of course. Well, we're back to the video. Next, let's do our test with a FaceTime call and see how they will prove themselves at full brightness without SIM cards over Wi-Fi. The iPhone 11 lasted 3 hours and 56 minutes on the call. Not a lot, but it's worth considering that the battery life is 97%. The iPhone 12 lasted 5 hours and 11 minutes. The battery life is 96%. Then the call stopped. Although this time, I planned in advance and supported it from another device. Well, anyway, we'll take the results for the iPhone 13 from the last test, 6 hours and 14 minutes. So 13 lasted the longest. Another important point is, of course, the display. The 11th iPhone has IPS with huge frames. And from the iPhone 12, Apple switched to OLED. Along with it, of course, fully fledged HDR support, which is still possible only on OLED, or rather, Dolby Vision in all its glory, which I think is the most important thing in the screen difference. The diagonal of the display is 6.1 inches in all. Perfect black, and the contrast is 2 million to 1 compared to 1,400 to 1, a significant difference. In addition, 13 breaks the record for brightness, 800 nits against 625 on the 11 and 12. But the peak for HDR on 12 and 13 is the same, 1,200 nits. These moments are also seriously felt when working with HDR content, including those shot on these iPhones. And there is an external difference in the display as well. You can't confuse them. The iPhone 13, for example, has a slightly smaller window, if that matters to you. And like I said, it's bright as hell, gives the sun a run for its money. iPhone 11 here looks like an outsider due to the IPS screen, and lower resolution, which is also important. 12 is in the middle, so yeah, all 60 Hz, 120 is also on Pro. I'm just reminding you about that. But what about the hardware? Actually, the main thing on the processor, A13, A14, or A15, Bionic. Moreover, A13 was still on a 7nm process, and the A14 and A15 were on 5 nanometers. Let's see what the great and mighty Geekbench will show us. In general, although the results vary greatly, all the chips will work and will not slow down for several more years. They will run games reasonably well. However, on 12 and 13, the reserve is more substantial. This is how Genshin Impact runs. Let's see, for example, how the battery will be affected after half an hour of play on an iPhone. 11's battery dropped by 14%, heated up to 39.5 degrees. In the warmest place, everything works at max settings. On all devices, the iPhone 12 sank by 16% unexpectedly. That is, its battery is less suited for games. The temperature is about the same, 39.1 degrees. As for iPhone 13, it dropped by only 10% in half an hour of play. The temperature is 39.6 in the warmest place. But what about the camera? And that's where the fun begins. In addition to the fact that cameras of the iPhone 13 are located diagonally, this is not the only difference from the 11 and 12. Firstly, iPhone 13 has the same main matrix as on the iPhone 12 Pro Max, the same as always, 12 megapixels, but with an increased pixel size of 1.7 microns. Actually, the matrix itself is larger, which means it receives more light. The 11 and 12 have a pixel size of 1.4 microns. 13 and 12 have a diaphragm of 1.6. But you realize that due to the larger matrix, the camera of the 13 is more luminous, and the 11 has a smaller diaphragm of 1.8. I won't dwell on this. The module is almost the same in all three, but the photos will still be different. I'll explain. Numbers are great and all, but let's look at some examples. To start off, daytime snapshots. It's clear that during the day all three are great. Nevertheless, the best quality is from iPhone 13. And here it is, also due to the fact that the algorithms of the same smart HDR versions 4K have been updated and Deep Fusion. As you can see, the clarity of the photo has improved. Interestingly, the pictures on the 11 and 12 are more similar in color. Details are on the same level as the 11 and 12. On the 13, there's a little more detail. On the ultrawide, it is visible. The white balance of the 11 and 13 is similar, but the 12 is colder. Otherwise, all three photos are similar in quality. On a tree with moss, you can see higher detail on the 13, but in general the quality is close. Even on the 13, less depth of field is obtained due to a larger matrix and aperture. In theory, Apple could update the algorithms on iPhone 11 and 12, but this unfortunately is not their way. Here it's worth envying Google with their Pixel. Here, for example, is my 5.4 XL. All camera updates are available as well as on all other models. Well, almost every other model. Still, they leave some features only for new products. iPhone 12 and 13 have a nighttime, time-lapse function. This is more for fans of this kind of thing. Personally, I tried it, enjoyed it, but I understand that for most users it's neither here nor there. A more interesting example is indoor shots, again, on all cameras of all three iPhones. For example, on ultra-wide. On 11, it turned out to be a soft shot with almost no noise. On 12, there is suddenly a lot of noise, and 13 lands in the middle, in noise and in sharpness. On the main camera, again, I like the picture on the iPhone 11 more than the 12. Again, too much noise and not a great quality shot. We're expecting the best picture on the iPhone 13. And of course, night mode. It's worth noting right away that the new iPhone camera on 13 is not only better, but also takes pictures faster in night mode. The main camera just needs less shutter time. Another important point is that the ultra-wide on iPhone 11 doesn't know how to go into night mode at all. That is, it doesn't even activate. But for example, portraits with a saturated background on the main camera, to be honest, are almost the same. Except maybe a little miss with the focus on the 12. But that's luck more than anything. The texture of the skin and beard are about the same level. Let me remind you, portraits are made here on the main camera without zooming. And you can also use the front camera. But there is another important point that doesn't lend itself to comparison here. On iPhone 13, styles for photos were delivered. What is it? I described that in detail in the month of life with the iPhone 13 Pro. But in short, I've been using styles a lot lately. I'll leave the links in the original images in the description, for you to judge. Write in the comments what you think. So, well, now moving on to the video. It would seem that the specs are basically about the same. All of them shoot 4K, 60 FPS, but this isn't quite true. For example, the iPhone 11 simply cannot shoot in HDR Dolby Vision at all, and that is just a different level for video recording on a smartphone. 12 can do it 4K, 30 FPS, 13 is 4K, 60 FPS, but this is again for a specific audience. Instagram and other social networks do not support HDR, so what's the difference? Personally, I need it, because I'm increasingly doing sub-shoots for my videos with the iPhone. Not everything, of course, only when my camera's not with me. For example, these shots on the street were taken on an iPhone 13 Pro, and its quality is almost the same as a regular 13. As for the stub, in my opinion, it works well everywhere, but let's take a look at some examples. weaker link in this case, it seems, is the iPhone 11. 12 has the updated optical stub. It performs 5,000 shifts per second, and on the 13, the matrix shift in general, but with the same characteristics. You can also listen to the sound quality from the microphones of each of the iPhones. iPhone 11, front camera, 4K, 30 FPS while walking. This is our iPhone 12 and its front camera, and also 4K, 30 FPS. Video recorded on the front camera of an iPhone 12. We're looking at the same 4K, 30 FPS, but probably the biggest change in video recording is the appearance of a movie effect on the cameras of the iPhone 13. Yeah, it's full HD, but it's still a cool thing. I think over time it will become smarter. It will be better at identifying objects, and someday it will move to 4K. In short, on 13, it is as full-fledged as on the Pro line. Consider that. Yeah, and the front camera on the same iPhone 13 is able to shoot in cinematic mode. This is good for quality stories. All the front cameras can manage 4K 60 FPS. The block that is active is the same for all three, 12 megapixels, aperture 2.2. Summing up the preliminary results on the cameras, I see an increase in performance on each of the devices, but probably the most noticeable jump is still on iPhone 13. Although in general, all three iPhones are of decent quality, and for many, I'm sure iPhone 11 will satisfy all their needs. It's better not to talk about sound, but to listen. I won't measure the frequency, but let's listen to all three in turn on the studio microphone. And yes, the speakers are stereo everywhere and support spatial audio and Dolby Atmos.
Before we're burning out, can you give me that? My flashing spirit have turned to gray, like fireflies into the gloom.
As for communication, all three support a nano SIM, and an eSIM, or two physical SIM cards if you bring them from China. But for me, support for eSIM is more useful. Bluetooth 5 and Wi-Fi 6 are also on all three devices. Now, even though 5G is not so relevant yet, it is available on the iPhone 12 and 13. Oh yes, one more little detail. All three have the UWB chip. That is, for RTC tags and for cars in Russia, it seems like they're about to unblock those frequencies. But as for updates and how long will support last, at the moment all devices have the current iOS 15.2 installed. I think support for all three devices will continue for at least 5 or 6 years, and iPhone 11 will receive the latest updates for at least a few more years. Understand that. iOS 15 dropped even on the iPhone 6s, which was released back in 2015. Summing up, it is clear that the iPhone 11 loses in every aspect except for its brightness, appearance, and equally bright colors. There are bold frames and an IPS display. The model came out in 2019, so it's understandable, but at the same time, it's an excellent device that will be relevant for several more years, and you won't feel it slowing down or lagging while you're using it. The iPhone 12 is cool because it's OLED and it has MagSafe. And yeah, it has become more compact and lighter, and of course, more powerful. The transition from A13 Bionic to A14 was significant. iPhone 13 pleases the most with an updated camera and a brighter display, as well as a longer-lasting battery. Yeah, it's really the most tenacious of the three, but for example, the colors are a bit boring. Although that's subjective, it's not a fact that the iPhone 13 will be much more powerful than the 12. But on the other hand, 13 has a big jump in the cameras department, not only due to the sensors themselves, but due to the updated algorithms, new effects, styles, and cinematic modes as well. In general, the choice is this. If you don't want to overpay and you don't take pictures often, then choose the iPhone 11. If it's important that there's an awesome OLED and you want to shoot with Dolby Vision, iPhone 12. And if you're also annoyed by the large frames on the iPhone 11. And of course, if the camera and battery life are most important and these are the main factors, then the iPhone 13. And don't forget about the additional features. Thank you very much for watching. I hope this video will be useful to those who are struggling to make a decision. Happy New Year's to you guys. This was Droider. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell button. It's important and rewarding for us, and it's easy for you. We'll see you later.